I did leave a little bit disappointed. I'm going to talk about maybe some things that I feel could be adapted if they were going to bring this back out after its West End run. Hey there theatre folk, my name is Richard and welcome back to Richard's Theatre Reviews. Today I'll be reviewing Standing on the Sky's Edge at the Gillian Lynne Theatre, and I actually got to see the show last week in London's West End, and I'm going to tell you all of my thoughts. Now, a lot of people liked this show, so if you enjoyed it, or if you didn't enjoy it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, let's talk about first, what is Standing on the Sky's Edge? Standing on the Sky's Edge is a new musical and it takes place in Sheffield in the Park Hill estate, and it follows three different perspectives who lived in the same house over different decades, and that's Joy, Rose and Poppy. And through their perspectives we get to learn about different issues that occurred in those decades, including racism, immigration, alcoholism, unemployment and being single in the 21st century. What's really interesting about the show is that although it's separated into different decades, the show is interwoven. So we're not just learning about one decade at a time, we're hearing their stories at the same time, which makes it really interesting. And they all have a different interpretation of what it's like to live in this estate. The major pull for people is that Richard Hawley has written the music, and even when we're going into the theatre and going through the front of house, I could hear a lot of people talking about Richard Hawley's music. So it does bring a lot of people into the theatre to see this production. I'm going to talk about first what I liked about the show. Okay, so what I liked, the first thing that jumps out to me is Ben Stone's costume and scenic design. As a designer, I think he's done an amazing job. When you walk into the Gillian Lynne Theatre, we were sitting in the circle, so in one of the balconies, and we were looking down and we could see just the spectacle of the set. Something that could be so simple, he is really drawn out and it's given that concrete jungle style within the theatre space itself, and doesn't just stay on the stage. At the Gillian Lynne, it kind of builds into the audience too. I really liked how the flats looked, and including the orchestra and the band within the flats I thought was quite clever. I was watching it before the show started and trying to work out the dimensions and how big it actually was, and when you see actors on stage it becomes even more impressive. It gave so much space for the ensemble to play as well. You saw them coming out and in through different entrances and exits, and I particularly liked how the set was made up in the house itself. There's no walls, it's just an outlining of a house, and it uses LEDs as well to help with that. The costume design as well is really cool. You can see the different decades and the different influences, and it works well with the set. I think that was a bullseye in terms of how to create a scenic design and a costume design to amalgamate together. One of the things I love about this show is that it doesn't just go decade by decade, which I was a bit nervous about when I first heard that it was going to be, three households separated by generations and all that kind of stuff. I was a bit nervous. But what I really like about Chris Bush's script is that she has amalgamated the pieces together and they all kind of blend well together. I think that works really well on stage. It allowed me to not feel like I was just going to hear different pinpoints and perspectives in the story. And I do think it's an important story to tell. I think that she does handle those social issues really well. It's a really well cast show. There was a lot of really powerful performances in it. One person did stand out among the rest though, and that was Lauren Redding. She gave a really fantastic performance as Nikki. Her performance just as a Scouser was brilliant, and it had such a nice comedy timing to it. She had one of the best laughs in the show that night as well. But yet she was able to play the hard-hitting scenes as well, especially with herself and Poppy. I think they were really well cast together. For our performance, Poppy was played by Laura Pitt Pulford, and she did an amazing job as well, working alongside Lauren Redding as Nikki to kind of build that relationship. And it's kind of hard as well sometimes to relate to her character, but I think she did a really good job as Poppy too. Rachel Wooding as Rose does a fantastic job. She really plays off that character really well. She tells the story well. Joy, who's played by Elizabeth Aodili, and Jimmy, who's played by Samuel Jordan, have a really nice chemistry, and their relationship works really well. Again, they both have very challenging roles because we see them grow up. So they start off as being teenagers and then we see them in their early 20s and just how they're dealing with their life. They have a really big plot point that happens at the end of Act 1. It's quite powerful. Their final scene in Act 2 I think really stands out to me as probably my favourite moment of the entire show. And it I don't want to spoil it because maybe you're going to go see it as well, but it has a really beautiful sentiment to it and it resonated with me. It did bring a tear to my eye, so I think that was well played by both actors. There's two moments that are amazing in the show, and they actually happen end of Act 1 and start of Act 2. And the end of Act 1 is just spectacular. Again, you kind of have to see it to understand it, but they do tear apart the world that they're in, and it is thrown towards the audience. And Act 2 then delivers with Standing on the Sky's Edge, which is their title song, and it's really powerful. It's done very simply. There's not much movement, but the lighting design within that scene is fantastic. Mark Henderson is the lighting designer, and he does a really good job within the show as well, pooling light, creating those moments, creating an atmosphere, but especially the start of Act 2. So when I heard it was an Olivier Award winning show, I did leave a little bit disappointed. I'm going to talk about maybe some things that I feel could be adapted if they were going to bring this back out after its West End run. Richard Hawley's music is fantastic, but for a lot of the show I felt that it wasn't really developing the storyline. It just kind of felt that we were going through the emotions of the song that wasn't going to tell me anything that I didn't know already from Chris Bush's book. I would actually say this is a play with some songs added to it, and there are some lovely moments. At the opening of Act 1 is a really nice song, but it could be told through dialogue a bit better, maybe. And I did feel like the songs just kind of dragged the show. When we were suddenly building up pace, the music pulled us out of it. An example of that is Act 1. Act 1 is quite long, and as my partner did say to me, like, it doesn't really build up any speed or momentum until they announce the elections, and that's when we start to feel a bit more of what's happening in the show. They do love to stand and sing at a microphone stand, and I understand that's probably the concept behind it, but I did feel like the songs that worked really well were the ones where the people weren't standing at microphone stands and they were singing within their scene. There's some lovely moments where, like, Poppy is singing a song and she's not at a mic stand, she's standing at the fridge and she's just singing to the audience. That's very powerful, but I feel like when you put a mic stand in front of me, it does pull me out of what's happening. I don't believe I'm in the story anymore. I feel like I'm at a concert production of the story. And personally for me, that doesn't really work for this show. So let's jump to my final thoughts. So if I was to recommend some things to change, if the show goes back out again on tour maybe, or goes back to Sheffield, I would love to see maybe an adapted Act 1, reducing down some of the content to allow there to be a little bit more pace, to get to the election quicker, to allow the audience to feel more involved. Like, the show is pretty long, it's 3 hours, so you're feeling it throughout the show. I'd also recommend maybe looking at the music itself and seeing if there's ways to adapt it or allow the actors to tell their story more through their song rather than be standing in front of a microphone. I'd give this show a 3-star review, and it's not based off the performances or anyone who's involved in the show itself, but just I felt the play, which I think is a play more than a musical, does need a bit of editing in terms of shortening down the first act and looking at maybe building some pace. If you have a different opinion to me, please let me know in the comments below. I know a lot of people love this show, so I'd love to hear what your feedback is. And that's what's great about art, is that everyone has different opinions. So that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much for watching this video and this review. If you liked it, make sure you like and subscribe. That really helps my channel. And I will see you in the next one.